There's a very common misconception regarding the Utah Jazz that I seem to see a lot, and that is that the Utah Jazz have been a fantastic regular season team and haven't delivered in the playoffs. That's what I keep saying, when in reality, that just isn't the truth. Last year was the first year under Quinn Snyder they finished above the 5th seed in the West, and while they've been a good regular season team, a consistent regular season team, to say they've been a great regular season team and then just disappointed, underwhelmed in the playoffs is actually, it's just not true at all. I think it comes from the fact that they blew that lead against the Nuggets. Sorry to bring it up, but I think that's where it comes from. And also, obviously, the fact that they had a fantastic regular season last season. But in general, last year was the first step in them going from a good regular season team for the years prior to a great regular season team. And yes, they did underwhelm. And yes, they were disappointing. And there are some room for skepticism, for sure. But at the same time, let's separate that from trying to build this narrative about the Jazz being these perennial playoff chokers, which I seem to see. And with that in mind, we still have to consider the Utah Jazz as a championship contender, because as of right now, looking like again, they're going to be one of, if not the best regular season team in the league again, because 7-1, just coming off a game in which they beat the Hawks comprehensively without Donovan Mitchell, this is a damn good team. And I'm going to continue to say it because they're a damn good team. Now, before I go any further, actually, if you could drop a like in the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, that would be much appreciated. I mean, just briefly touching on the Atlanta game, that just shows how deep this team is, and something we already know. They're going to rack up wins with or without Donovan Mitchell, and that's not taking away from anything he does, because he's amazing, and in the playoffs, they need what he brings, because he brings that scoring and that ability to create his own shot when the ball movement can't be as crisp and it can't be as regular, they can't get as many open looks. But if you were to take him out of this lineup for the regular season, they're probably still winning 45 to 50 games. That's just how good they are. They've got a couple of 6 Man of the Year contenders. They got the runner-up and the 6 Man of the Year from last year. They improved their bench, which I'll talk about. Rudy Gobert is obviously anchoring a defense. You've got shooters. You've got Mike Conley. I don't need to talk about that, but in general, this is a team that is so well-structured and well-built that there's no worries about them finishing as one of the top 3 or 4 seeds in the West, because we're seeing what they do. And this is actually, while they haven't had the best start to the season, they've still remained 7-1. Have their fixtures been immensely hard? No, they haven't. They've beat the Nuggets, the Bucks, and now the Hawks, which seem like pretty tough fixtures on paper, but the Bucks and Nuggets were on demand. But at the same time, they've still looked like a really good team, and the Utah Jazz team that we've known over the last couple of years, where they've had a fantastic defense to start the season. They've got the 3rd-ranked defense. They've got the 2nd-ranked offense. But the crazy thing is, the little unique thing about this start to the season is the Jazz haven't been shooting the 3-ball well. They haven't been shooting the 3-ball well. So if they can rectify that, because so far they're shooting a lot down from last year, where they were one of the best 3-point shooting teams, if not the best 3-point shooting team of all time. Shooting nearly 39% last year on nearly 17 makes a game. Ridiculous numbers. But they're still getting a lot of wide open looks. They're still creating a lot of opportunities. When you've got Mike Conley, when you've got Donovan Mitchell, when you've got Rudy Gobert, and then the shooters around him, shooters, quotation marks, because as of right now, apart from the GOAT, who's shooting 51%, put some respect on his name. Put some respect on his name, okay? Do it, because 51% from 3, and this is regular. We've come to expect this. Over 40% on his career. You know who I'm talking about. If you don't, then leave right now, because it's Joe Ingles. He had the flamethrower against the Hawks. He's going to continue to do that. And apart from him, who doesn't need to adjust to different balls, he'll do it in the Olympics. He'll do it in the NBA. He'll do it in his sleep. He's going to knock down shots at will. Apart from him and Mike Conley, everyone else has been struggling to start the season from 3. But am I that worried? No, because as I said, they've got the formula. They've got the players, they've got the system, and they're still creating open shots. Jordan Clarkson is shooting 23%. Royce O'Neal is down. Donovan Mitchell is down. All of these guys are down, and I look at all these guys as pretty good shooters. Bogdanovic, who's shot nearly 40% for pretty much the last 6 seasons straight, is down as well. The Jazz are in a little bit of a shooting slump, and they're still 7-1. They're still one of the best offenses. They've still got the best net rating. They've still got one of the best defenses. That's why they're championship contenders. We kind of already know this. We do know that they've been a fantastic regular season team the last year, and it looks like it's going to continue. What have they done to address the playoff issues? Because they had some playoff issues against the Clippers, and everyone knows that. And have they done enough to rectify it? Because none of this matters if they haven't. In terms of looking at the moves the Jazz made before I talk about the playoff series, and in terms of if the Jazz look a little bit different to start this season, even though it's still early, they did make some nice moves. Hassan Whiteside looks like an upgrade on Derek Favors at the moment. Still coming playoff time, you're obviously going to have Rudy Gobert playing a lot of minutes, so it's not going to matter a ton. But at the moment, he's been fantastic off the bench. He's leading the NBA in blocks off the bench and rebounds. Not surprising, but he's been good. He's been a good addition. Eric Paschall has come up with some big rebounds, including one against the Hawks, and in general, he's averaging 1.5 offensive rebounds off the bench. Hasn't put up crazy numbers apart from those rebounds, but he's still been nice as well, bringing some energy and just bringing some life to that second unit, which didn't really need life because you've got Joe Ingles and Jordan Clarkson. And although Jordan Clarkson has struggled, he just dropped 30 points against the Hawks. And that's just kind of indicative of him and the Jazz bench. Any night you could get 20 from Ingles, 30 from Clarkson, Rudy Gaye still to come back, who was their biggest signing, who just came off a season where he averaged 12 points for the Spurs off the bench and is hovering around that 40% from three and is going to consistently score 12 to 15 points a night. So any night you've got 3 guys that could give you 20 points. You got 50 points combined from Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles last night. I know Ingles was in the starting lineup, but that just shows the strength of this bench, and it's improved from last year. So there's no questions over the bench. It's got better. The depth has got better. Rudy Gaye is probably the one out of those guys that I would expect to make a difference in the playoffs. Someone who can make shots, someone who's a bigger body defending guys. So I could see him being a little bit of an impact player there. But the other guys, they've been solid. They'll play some minutes come playoff time. But in terms of the big difference, it's going to be about Rudy Gobert. It's going to be about Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley. Those 3 guys in particular. Because when I look at the Clippers series, and I believe people are starting to realize it, some of us got caught up in the moment. I was one of those people thinking Rudy Gobert was to blame. I didn't say he was completely to blame, but he was to blame. That's what I thought. And he still was. He wasn't amazing, but he did have some issues in terms of he was trying to guard 2 places at once because Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley couldn't keep in front of Reggie Jackson or Terrence Mann or Paul George, whoever was driving and kicking. It didn't matter. They couldn't do much. And you have to remember, which does tend to get overlooked, Mike Conley just came back off an injury and clearly wasn't right. Donovan Mitchell was injured as well and wasn't right either. So you had these 2 guys that couldn't really move too well on offense or defense and were really just getting blown past. And then Rudy Gobert was asked to either try to protect the rim, which obviously that's what he tried to do because you got to give up the 3 instead of the 2. And Terrence Mann just happened to turn into Steph Curry. I don't want to bring back bad memories, but that's how it happened and that's how it played out. Heading forward into next year, well, you hope Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley aren't going to be injured. That's one that goes under the radar. Mike Conley did miss pretty much the entirety of that Clippers series. I know Kawhi missed the last 2 games, which well and truly makes up for it. And they were outplayed. The Clippers had the tactics. They had the small ball team. They did well, the Clippers. They had the plan and they executed it well. But Mike Conley being injured, that's a huge difference maker. If he can come back and be healthy next season, this season in the playoffs, should I say, that'll be huge because he was fantastic against the Grizzlies. He looks like he's still the player that we've come to know over the last several years in terms of an efficient shooter, a great pick and roll threat, someone who's just going to thread the needles so consistently. But getting those 2 guys healthy and getting the perimeter defense up to scratch, you're not expecting Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell to be the greatest defenders ever, but you're also expecting them to put up a little bit more of a fight and then also moving into Rudy Gobert. Now, when I say he wasn't perfect, because he wasn't, it was somewhat to do with the defense, because obviously he could have moved his feet a little bit better on some occasions, but it also has to do with the offense. Maybe this is Rudy, maybe this is the Jazz, maybe it's a little bit of both, but heading forward, if a team goes small again, you can't have Rudy doing nothing on offense because that's just playing right into their hands, and that's exactly what they did. And yes, Rudy isn't the most skilled offensive player. He's an effective guy because his screens are fantastic, he's a lob threat, but he's not the most skilled. We know that. But at the same time, he does have some skill. He does have some strength. He does have an ability to finish at the rim. I saw it for France with the Olympic team. I saw him going up against smaller guys, and this was in games that mattered against good teams. So it's not like you can say, oh, he was playing against X, Y, and Z. No, he was playing against some good opponents and was doing a good job dominating inside when he was getting fed and taking advantage of mismatches and smaller opponents. He needs to do that again heading forward into the playoffs. He's shooting a career high from the field. He's shooting a career high from the free throw line. We need to see Rudy Gobert actually punish teams if they go small, because that's the main way you're going to stop them. There is no reason to think this isn't a championship contender. I know people are kind of scared away because, oh, they didn't win it last year. It's like, they're not going to win it every year. A team that finishes the number 1 seed isn't going to win it every year. We see it all the time, but there's no reason to look at this team and see Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, great players coming off the bench, Rudy Gobert, and some additions they made, which are nice, and think, oh, they can't win it, because I know they can win it, because Donovan Mitchell has proven he elevates his performance in the playoffs and gets to a point where you could consider him a superstar at that level, and that's what you need on offense in the playoffs. Rudy Gobert is hugely impactful. He was fantastic in the playoffs prior to that last series, actually, the last few games, should I say. He was actually good in the few games against the Clippers before that, but in general, this is a very deep team with a fantastic coach, fantastic system, and the right players. We shouldn't just disrespect them because there's this narrative that, oh my God, they've been perennial chokers or something, which I do see a little bit of. No, the Jazz are legit. They're showing it this year, and I'm waiting to see what they do in the playoffs. I guess it's similar to the Bucks last year, except they don't have Giannis, so there is a difference in that nature. You would love to have Giannis, but at the same time, this is a team that looks like they're going to be fantastic in the regular season again, and maybe they have the right adjustments to do it in the playoffs. I'm not sleeping on them. They're a championship contender. There's no doubts about that. They're a championship contender. Anyways, have a good day. Catch you next time. Bye.